Good morning, lovely twos, and welcome to your new topic on relationships in an ecosystem. Now today we're going to be studying habitats. Habitats have two sets of factors that influence them. There are the biotic factors and the abiotic factors. The biotic factors are all the living things within a habitat. So that essentially is the five kingdoms. So plants, animals, bacteria, fungi and protists. Those are the biotic factors. The abiotic factors are the non-living factors. So these are things like temperature, like soil pH, light intensity, moisture or water availability. And these abiotic factors are what we are going to look at within two different habitats today. So it is time to go out and into the field. To the field! So here we are in a wonderful woodland habitat, and we're going to measure 4 abiotic factors here. They are soil pH, light intensity, the moisture in the soil, and temperature. Now, the last one's a bit tricky because in order to measure soil temperature, you need a special thermometer that's got a casing so that you can safely push it into the ground. Otherwise, the thermometer's going to get broken. And we don't have any of those. They are all in the lab. So you can imagine me right now pushing the thermometer into the ground, measuring the temperature, holding the thermometer up in the air and measuring the temperature. But that's in your imagination. But what I am going to do for you now is test the pH, the light and the moisture. So here is our light and moisture meter. So this here has a part here which detects light and the probe here which detects moisture. You can see two different dials. There's the grey one here which is shaded, so down here is A is the darkest amount of light and H is very, very light. And then along the bottom here, the coloured one with the numbers is the moisture meter. And so very little moisture all the way up to 10 here, lots of moisture. So let's start with the light. To do this, you need to take the probe out, and I want to measure the amount of light in this woodland, but I want to make it a fair test with the other habitat. So I need to measure it at the same height in both habitats. Place it right down here at ground level. Hello, chicken. And you'll see here, I don't want to shade it across the top, so I'm standing back making sure that my shadow isn't preventing the light, and then you'll be able to see the light reading along the bottom here, C. So now I'm going to replace the probe in the bottom here so that we can measure the moisture in the soil. So I'm going to push the probe into, I want it to go to the same depth in all the habitats that I measure. So there's a slight kink in it here, so I'm going to push it into that level there. Pushing down, and ooh, here we see a moisture of 3. So now we're going to test the soil pH. For that, I need to take a sample of soil. So here's my woodland soil sample, and we'll test the pH for that back inside my kitchen lab. Okay, so we've got all our data from the woodland habitat, so let's go into our second habitat, the field. So here we are in our second habitat, the field. Let's take our readings here. So let's start again with the light and pH meter. Ground level, not shading the top. Oh my goodness, right up at 10 on the light. For the moisture, we want to push it into the same distance. Ooh, moisture reading here at 8. Last thing to do is take our soil sample from the field. Okay. And let's go and test those samples in the kitchen for pH. So here we are back in my kitchen lab, and I'm going to teach you how to test soil for pH. So you'll remember that pH gives a measure of how acidic or how alkaline the soil is. Do you remember what you used to test for that? I hope you said universal indicator. And I've got some universal indicator paper here. Always need your trusty pH scale because you can't tell whether it's acid or alkali without your scale. So let's make a start. We're going to add some water to each of the soils. Now, it's very important that we use distilled water. Distilled water has a pH of 7. That means it's completely neutral and will not interfere with the results. If you were to use tap water, that could have a slightly acidic or a slightly alkaline pH, depending on where you live. So also rainwater will definitely have a slightly acidic pH. So it's really important we use pure distilled water. That is water that has been evaporated and then condensed and collected again. Completely pure, pH 7. Mix the soil samples thoroughly. If I were to just try and dip the paper into this here, it's so muddy and brown that you actually wouldn't be able to see the colour change. So what can I do? You guessed it, filtering, using a funnel here. Now, I haven't got any filter paper here, so I'm going to try to use kitchen paper. Let's see if that works. Pour in universal indicator paper. There we are. And let's see the pH. It's definitely darker than 6. Could be 7 or 8. What do you reckon? I think probably a 7. So now the woodland soil sample. Universal indicator paper. Ooh, pH of about 5 in the woodland. Just comparing it here, looking at the two. Field one here, I would say that's nearer about an 8. And I would say that the woodland one here is nearer about a 5. So the woodland one much more acidic, and the field one here more alkaline. Why do you think that is? Look at all this mess. Where's my lab lady when I need her? So that's how you test the abiotic factors, sometimes called physical factors, out in a habitat. And what you need to do while you're going around, you write down your results that you get. And I've scribbled the results down here. So here are the results that I've jotted down from the two different habitats. Here we've got the woodland habitat and here the field habitat. So for each of them, we've got pH, moisture, light, and temperature. Now you'll notice I didn't take temperature while we were out there, but this is a set of results that I took this time last year on a very, very similar type of day, and so I've used those. Now you'll notice I've also added some extra pieces of information here that might be helpful to you to work out why we're seeing the results we're seeing. The weather today, it had rained earlier today, quite a bit of rain earlier today, and now it's dry, but it's very windy now. So I'm looking at these two pieces of information here to help me with the idea of moisture and ground and air temperature. See whether you can work out why we're seeing these differences. Now also the type of the soil in the woodland, there was lots of decaying leaf litter. I want you to think about what causes decay and what type of conditions that might result in to do with pH, acidity or alkaline. The same here for the field. In my soil sample, when I had a close look, there were lots of little chalky white pieces in the soil and it was quite full of clay. So I want you to have a think about this, please, in association with pH of the soil. So there are two tasks for you to do following on from testing our habitats. The first is to make a table of results. So your title is results, and then I want you to construct a table, please, using a pencil and a ruler to display this information here. We have 2 different habitats and we have 4 different factors. So you'll be wanting to set it out something like this here. So I want you to use ruler, pencil, pen, and really make that an excellent piece of work. And you'll take a photograph of it and attach it to the Google Slides document, which will be called Habitats, Results and Conclusion. So that you can gather there, the second thing I want you to do is to make a conclusion. Why do we see the differences we see? I want you to take each of the physical factors or abiotic factors in turn and try to suggest why the pHs are different, why the moisture is different, why the temperatures are different in the air and soil between the two different habitats, and also the light intensity. So your two jobs are to do the results and the conclusion. Your last task is a really fun one. I want you to draw a cartoon strip of how to test the pH of soil. In each box you're going to draw a step at a time. So the first step, for example, you will have the description at the top, take a sample of soil, and then underneath you will have a labelled diagram telling me what you are doing. So we took the soil sample, we then added some distilled water and we mixed it thoroughly by shaking. We then filtered it and then we applied a piece of universal indicator paper, and then we checked the pH against the pH scale. So I can't wait to see your lovely cartoons, please, of how to test the pH of soil, plus your results and conclusion for the different abiotic factors in our two different habitats. I hope you enjoyed that, boys and girls. That is how you test abiotic factors in two different habitats. Remember, abiotic factors are the non-living factors, so including temperature, light intensity, soil pH, and moisture. I hope you've enjoyed Habitats today and look forward to seeing you next time.